Thank you for having invited me on the occasion of this important lecture dedicated to a colleague from the same newspaper where I spent long years. In fact, since I'm speaking in the press club of Trivandrum, unique press club because it does not have a liquor license. A press club without a liquor license is a rarity. We also remember another colleague who met with an unfortunate accident when an official of some authority pummeled him with his own car just a few days ago. Friends, when I was coming to Trivandrum, the joke in a very shocked New Delhi was that Saeed is going there to seek asylum. The northern politics have consistently been superimposed on southern politics, and I have always been of the view, having lived here for 5 wonderful years as editor of the same newspaper, India Express. I had my head office in Chennai, but Kerala was part of my parish, as was Karnataka, Hyderabad, Vijayawada, and so on, the whole southern region. But of the lot, I used to always find time for Kerala. I used to travel here very often. We then did not have a publication from Trivandrum. We never published Indian Express. There was a bureau, and the bureau was next door to EMS Nambudripad's house. And I remember going to the office, and he would be there reading his newspaper. And then I would go and meet him. It was one of the most humbling experiences of my journalistic life that I met him, not because of his name, but he was quite extraordinary. I come from a small place near Raebareli, Unchahar railway station. This man in Trivandrum, he knew it all. He knew the geography of the whole. Of course, he knew Kerala like the back of his hand, but he knew the whole country. It was a very, very humbling. I have not met people like him in Indian public life. The theme that had been assigned was, talking of EMS, this happens to be the 60th year exactly 2019 is 60th year of the Congress having ousted the, the first Namboodiripad government uh, in collaboration, which came out much later, and it is not yet known, in total collaboration with the Americans. Uh, Nehru's left and right one never knew. I have not been able to divine it because then Ellsworth Bunker was the American ambassador. And in those days, how it started, as many, I don't know how many of you will remember, it started as the CPM, the left, coming to power through the ballot box for the first time in human history anywhere was here in Kerala. Many things were first time in Kerala. The Adi Shankara was the first time in Kerala. Buddhism was the first time. So it's an extraordinary place which throws up talents. Ellsworth Bunker naturally kept it a secret. But in an interview to a scholar of Columbia University in New York, it is available in a podcast. He said how Nehru and more Indira Gandhi, she was then the party president, sought help. And Americans were very worried because, my God, communism has come to power. If India becomes communist, they have lost a huge strategic. So they started working very hard and agitations were started. Agitations became law and order situation. And law and order then, of course, in 1959, exactly 60 years to the date, the government was ousted. There you had the left-leaning Nehru. How inconsistent politics sometimes can be, and yet there's a thread through it. This is also the 50th year. This 50th year of Mrs. Indira Gandhi splitting the Indian National Congress. 1969 it was split. Now there again, it was a response to the global situation then. And all the so-called right-wing elements and those close to the business and the Americans were pruned, and Mrs. Gandhi then, of course, began to lean, if you remember, came S.A. Dange of the CPI, Mohit Sen, and all these people. In the Congress party, you had Mohan Kumar Mangalam, P.N. Haksar in her secretariat, and there was this compact between Mrs. Gandhi and the leftists in the party and the CPI. And the CPI those days called it, it was the policy was called unity and struggle. We unite with the pro-people's policies of the Congress, but we struggle against the anti-people's policies. That was the line. Now when she came close, I'm just giving you this little thread to bring you to the current situation. When she was seen to be close to the left, and mind you, she had used the Americans to dislodge EMS in in Kerala. Now when she is seen close to the left, the right picks up momentum. Why? What for? I am not deviating from the subject. I am only giving you the historical background why we are where we are. The 70s were going very badly for the Americans in what was called détente. Détente, the joke in Washington, D.C., I happened to be at Princeton in those days. The joke in Washington was that détente was like a wife swapping party where you went with your wife and came back alone. So it was a negative returns. The Americans were very worried. This is the Brezhnev era for the Soviet Union. And then, lo and behold, something else happened. The Portuguese withdrew from their colonies, and the Americans suddenly discovered that Angola had an underground communist party which came to power in 1974. In 1974, Mozambique, communists came to power. Portuguese withdraw. The same year, Mengistu comes to power in Ethiopia. And about that time, Nicaragua in Latin America you still have the Sandinista leader. Like all leaders who last too long, even he has begun to putrefy a little bit. I met him in Managua. So the Americans they thought they had nipped something in the bud here in Kerala, but everywhere else they discovered that they were incipient communist parties. And the deep state then said we must eliminate. This area was safe for the Americans on the face of it. There was the Shah in Iran, a total American puppet. There was Ziaul Haq in Pakistan, a total American puppet. There was Dawood, Zahir Shah's relative nephew in Afghanistan, not exactly a puppet, but very much inclined that way. The class character was that. Then you had Morarji Bhai in Delhi. You can't call him a puppet, but very much a correction to the right. And then you had JRJ in Sri Lanka. So you had a whole string of people who were with the Americans. On the other hand, as I told you, you had Berlinguer coming to power was knocking at the gates in Italy, Marseille in France, Carrillo in Spain. There was people like Henry Kissinger were talking about a Marxist Western Europe in 15 years, 10 and 5. This was the picture. So the Americans started working. We shall not allow an Angola and Mozambique and Ethiopia to happen here. We must nip the communist movement in the bud. So what did they do? First came the Saur revolution in Afghanistan. What was the Saur's April Revolution in Afghanistan? What happened? The Shah's Savak, the CIA, they worked out a scheme that the left and the communists around Dawood would be eliminated. In an action, military action, it would be eliminated. The story leaked as such story. You know, the imperfection of American actions have to be seen to be believed. It's a subject of research. They have never ever hit the jackpot. Never. Since Vietnam, do you know any war that they have won? Any, name any. They have the capacity to destroy countries. Power they have. But if method, oh, CIA, ille. You work out, the story leaked, and what was the story in Kabul? A man called Mir Akbar Khyber was a trade union leader. Communist parties in Afghanistan, there were two, Khalq and Parcham. Khalq was the CPI, Parcham was like our CPM. That was the equation. So when Mir Akbar Khyber was murdered, this story leaked. This alerted the left that something was afoot. Their own trade union leader has been killed. They got alerted and they went and killed Dawood instead. If you remember, there was a huge, they were from Pule Charkhi, they came in and they killed Dawood and everyone around him. And suddenly, unprepared, and I happened to be there. The one reason why I share this with my colleagues when I get a chance is because I've been very fortunate that I have traveled a great deal. So at that press conference, the first press conference by a man called Nur Muhammad Taraki, he was the CPI, the Khalq leader who became prime minister. So the communists came to power when the Americans wanted exactly the opposite. When the communists came to power, on their train, very soon came the Soviet Union and you had the Soviet occupation of Afghanistan. Americans got active again, this time in Iran. What did they do? They said Ayatollah Khomeini was in exile in Paris, outside a place called La Chapelle outside Paris. He had a great influence because there was no democracy under the Shah, so the only ventilation was in the mosques. So there was a lot of religious organization unbeknown to the Shah. The Americans knew. So they said, if we bring Ayatollah Khomeini back, there is a contradiction between Islam and communism. As soon as he comes in, a revolution will come up. When a revolution comes up, the people who will join him will be the Tudeh, Communist Party of Iran, and Mujahideen Khalq, the other Communist Party of Iran. Look at the trick. So they came, the Tudeh joined them because they wanted the Shah out. But what happened? In this crowd, some people there have got up, some people there have got up. I am the CIA, I've spotted, I am the Shah, Ayatollah Khomeini, and I say, well, that is the Tudeh and that is Mujahideen Khalq, finish them. So he actually finished Tudeh. Mujahideen Khalq went away to Iraq. Now, again, the game went bad. The Americans wanted to use the mullahs to eliminate the left. Instead, what happened? The Mullahs entrenched themselves. They locked up the American embassy for 444 days. Hundreds of American diplomats in that embassy. 440. They've never felt such humiliation, and they're feeling that again today. Then, of course, you had the rest. At that time, at that very time, if you remember now, I'm giving you the sequence. My good friend JP, was very fond of me. During the Bihar movement, I went and he invited me to stay with him. Wonderful man. He was picked up by two characters. One was the proprietor of this newspaper, Ramnath Goenka, who was very friendly with Mr. Nanaji Deshmukh of the RSS. They were great buddies. They both had problems with Mrs. Gandhi going so far left. And Ramnathji had other property problems. He wanted 24 floors and only 20 were sanctioned. You know, things like that. He used to have those problems. And so she had to go. Nanaji Deshmukh, the entire Bihar movement was on the shoulders of Nanaji Deshmukh and the RSS cadres. So you had RSS, you had the socialists, you had the Congress O. Everybody had come under one canopy. You see, it was so easy to recognize it was how indistinguishable one was from the other. They were all the same under the umbrella of the so-called JP movement. All of these interests came together, and naturally they had whose support? Western support. The idea was to pressurize Indira so that she would disengage from the left and engage with them. One thing led to the other. There was that Allahabad High Court case, which amazing. The judge, because of the technical use of a stage by Mrs. Gandhi's men for an election campaign, he said that she had misused her authority, therefore she has to be banned, number one, and for X number of years from Parliament. Now, this was the beginning of the end for the Gandhi dynasty. So the young son, Sanjay, Siddharth Shankar Ray, and sundry people got together and they declared the famous or the infamous emergency. All right. Now, all these people have already come together during the Bihar movement. The purpose is to disengage her from the left. She has gone and done the foolish thing of declaring an emergency. In the emergency, after the emergency, she had I met her for one interview for the Sunday Times of London. Very completely different to what is painted of her. A very petrified and extremely scared lady she was. She wouldn't speak, she couldn't lift and talk to you. Anyway, that's not my purpose. So she was forced to hold an election. Some people told her that she would win hands down. She lost. The people, charisma or no charisma, people swept her. And you had the first Janata government come to power in 77. Morarji Bhai, Atal Bihari Vajpayee as foreign minister, L.K. Advani as the information and broadcasting minister, and various socialists and Congress O and etc. Whole lot of them. Lo and behold, they came down like melting ice cream in 1980. Mrs. Gandhi came back, but this was a different Mrs. Gandhi. Mrs. Gandhi she had learnt some things. The idea was, it was not left, but the Indian people were to the right. How she defined that? The context was, am I taking you to, am I getting into detail that you need not be told? Should I? Huh? Are you? I'm just giving you filling you with history that otherwise is missed out. The present, to understand the present, that past is important. So she came back, started the Punjab agitation, separate Sikh state. Separate Sikh state, her advisors foolishly advised her into military action in the very citadel of Sikh Astha, of Sikh belief, which was the Golden Temple in Amritsar. Operation Blue Star. Oh, the Sikh was not going to forgive her for that. You know, that is the Mecca for them. So her own bodyguards, Sikhs, shot her. Now, but before being shot, she fought the election in Jammu. She decided that these Sikh minorities had to be taken on head on. So Mrs. Gandhi fought the Jammu election. Go back to the Jammu elections. Mrs. Gandhi fought the Jammu election of 1982, totally on a communal platform. I mean, she could not have, it was the minorities have to behave, minorities have to be, and once she realized that, as her security, she went to Hardwar and she opened the biggest Bharat Mata temple. People don't know all this. In 1983. In 1984, she got killed. Then Rajiv Gandhi came back with that huge majority, 4/5 of parliament. You, I, yourself, we all would have thought that this election was because of the sympathy wave. No, the Congress stalwarts said this is Hindu consolidation taking place against minority aggression. Now one minority is Sikh. Very easily it gets transposed into minority Muslim. It is an optical trick. Sikh minorityism and Muslim. Since then came our friend Rajiv Gandhi. This happens to be the 30th anniversary of the gaffe that Rajiv Gandhi, he thought that he would keep the Muslim vote. So he went a completely retrogressive step of Shah Bano, a poor Muslim widow, was looking for maintenance. Supreme Court had given it to her. The mullahs were hopping mad. Rajiv thought that the mullahs were the Muslims. So he decided to reverse in Parliament by a constitutional amendment to reverse the Supreme Court judgment. My God, two things happened. A, the liberals lost trust in him. He did something else. He banned the Salman Rushdie's book a little later. But these were all stupid mistakes that he was making. And yet, in 1976, earlier he had done it, he went and opened the locks of the temple. He thought this way he would take the wind out of the VHP and RSS sails. He opened it. They said, oh, Rajiv is taking away our platform. So they aggravated the movement and they said, we shall build the temple exactly. Went to the Allahabad High Court. High Court said, this is disputed land. Just now there is a case going on. But VHP, Mr. Ashok Singhal, he said, over our dead bodies, hundreds of Kar Sevaks assembled in, and he said, we are going to lay the foundation stone. I am going to, if you register what I am saying, I am stoking your memory on things that you have forgotten. The biggest marketing strategy that mankind has ever thought of was the Shilanyas movement of the VHP. What was the Shilanyas movement? Every village, every temple, in every village of India will pick up a brick, have it consecrated in the temple, and it will be taken all the way to Ayodhya to build the temple. Just imagine the emotive appeal it would create. And mind you, the north is different from the south. Here the wave may have been a little weak, but in the north, picked up, flared up. So I need your attention on this detail. VHP will do the Shilanyas, will do the stone laying ceremony on exactly the land that has disputed. Rajiv was in a state of funk. If they succeed in doing this, it will be a slap on the face of the administration. It will reveal that the police force and the civil service are more obedient to their astha on Lord Ram than the state. So he thought of a trick. He was a very simple fellow. He never thought of any tricks. There was a very wily Purohit behind him was my schoolmate called Arun Nehru. Nehru, he was a plotter. Stupid plotter. Too clever by half. He gave him the idea that Mr. Shiv Sharan Srivastav, the magistrate of Ayodhya, with whom I sat while this happened. That's why I am the only one who is witness to that event. He will allow Shilanyas, stone laying ceremony on land that is disputed, that Singhal and VHP wants. All right? He will allow it to happen. But the story will be put out in the press note that yes, some stone laying ceremony was done, but it was on undisputed land. The minute the story came out on the wires, Singhal called the biggest press conference. And he said, we have done exactly what we have said. Here is the picture. This is where it is happening. Now imagine the Prime Minister of the day telling a lie, wanting to garner Hindu support, taking it away from the VHP. Is that the image of Rajiv Gandhi that you people have? Isn't it? Isn't it? I didn't have it. He was a friend of mine. But with the people around him. People around him. The poor, then he goes to Ayodhya on the eve of 1989 elections. He goes, if I am elected Prime Minister, I promise you Ram Rajya in this country. Can you believe? Did the RSS say it? No. Did the BJP say it? No. Did the VHP say it? No. The Prime Minister goes to Ayodhya announcing his election and saying, I, if elected, will announce Ram Raj. Now, meanwhile, things get complicated here. His good colleague, VP Singh, finance minister, breaks with him, 1989. And he charges him of his family making money on the Bofors gun. He had made no money. Poor fellow knew nothing. Again, Arun Nehru knew. He knew nothing. He was a fool in many ways. I'm sorry saying this about what the country considers a great leader. You have a statue of him over here. He, innocent fellow. Wily Nehru, Arun Nehru. He thought, anyway, that VHP, he thought we will need some money, so they got money from Bofors, you see. Industrialists were not giving them so much money then. He thought, not Rajiv, didn't even know. Anyway, he lost the election. Can you believe? The Prime Minister who in 1984 had come to power with 4/5 majority loses the election in 1989 to VP Singh. Becomes a minority, and VP Singh gobbles up a coalition which collapses. Comes the 1991 election, in which midway, as the election is going on, midway, Rajiv Gandhi is assassinated. Midway, half the election. In the northern half, elections have taken place. They have gone very badly for the Congress, but then he is assassinated. Emotional appeal works in the southern area. So when P.V. Narasimha Rao becomes Prime Minister, by a quirk of fortune, he is kept buoyant by the southern contingent in the Congress. Now he then makes up his mind that the North shall never have a leader. So Narendran Tiwari is too old and he is a has-been. That wily Thakur Rajput, Arjun Singh, he has to be checkmated. PV also became victim of advice from Chandra Swami. He was constantly advising him. Advice from Chandra Swami. And he had a certain exaggerated Brahminical game in him. Because in 1991 elections, something strange happened. Rajendra Kumari Vajpayee lost, K.K. Tiwari lost, V.N. Gadgil lost. About a whole bevy, the Lokpati Tripathi lost, about 20 Brahmins, and even outside the Congress. Ramakrishna Hegde lost, Madhudan Dvate lost. So there was something happening again, anti-Brahman something was happening. PV was very much of a Pandit that way. He accommodated whoever there was in his government. But he saw to it that Thakur should not rise. So he more or less, it was in, Vajpayee was the best Congress Prime Minister that the party never had, according to me. He was much more secular than PV. This again people will not believe. That is, therefore, Congress facilitates the first BJP prime ministership because of its own inner caste contradictions and preferences. Now, PV, you have Vajpayee. Very sound, different, completely different from the lot who are there. Because he was a consensus man. He thought that, I mean, a Hindu Rashtra was not given up by him. But he said it has to be an incremental, not the violent way in which these people have done it. And when then 2014 elections were strange. Yes, 2014. If you remember, there was an image of Mother, Son and the Holy Ghost. Mother, Son Rahul and poor Manmohan Singh, gentleman, but no politician, and surrounded by bandicoots who made money hand over fist. All of them in the coalition. They made money. And, well, more than they making money, the perception that was created in the media that this is a putrid establishment. And if you remember the campaign, Israelis got into it. The American ambassador ex-American ambassador became part of APCA, a group which was advising Narendra Modi that after him Narendra Modi was going to be created. The world's most expensive election campaign was launched. Comprehensively the media, crony capitalism at its worst. All of us then become complicit. In the press club, you are journalists. Let me tell you, we are all complicit in whatever happened. Because each and every channel, what would happen? Here is, say, let's not name names. You never know who is listening. But say Ambani. Ambani has money in A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H channels and newspapers. His big business is not channels and newspapers. His big business is Reliance. His big business, he wants oil wells in the basin. So what does he do? He places all of these at the disposal of the government, all these channels and newspapers, and in return for what? In return for whatever we require for our business. So you had Adani and you had Ambani and you had about half a dozen billionaires came up, big industrialists came up. That was crony capitalism at its height. And you had Modi and Amit Shah, the Gujarati duet, come and sweep in 2014. But the sweep was not so bad. What was the Congress party doing? It's been declining since the day a poor fellow, Sitaram Kesri, because he happened to be a poor man, a poor caste, he had been the treasurer of the party for 16 years, not one paisa, not one penny of allegation against him. His son died riding a bicycle. That fellow, because of the low caste that he came from, he didn't look like us. They thought, oh, supposing he becomes prime minister. So Pranab Dada, Sharad Pawar, and half a dozen others got together and said, Sonia, you sit here, remove him. That very day, they went around and pulled out all his plaques from the Congress committee office. That day, plaques were pulled out. Eto, said, I remember Pranab going with a stick. Eto, remove this, remove that, remove that. She came in. Congress got 100. PV after the Babri Masjid had got 140 seats. Mrs. Gandhi got 141 seats. She next again got 140 seats. This is all never improved. 2009 was a little fluke. Then you had 44 seats, then 52 seats, and never will the Congress, never will it ever revert. Now you have a comprehensive wave, whether it is EVM machines or TVM machines or whatever. You can cry. I don't hear anyone doing anything about them. If I were a political party, I would say, look, the people of India have some doubts about these EVM machines. 5 years now there will be elections. Let us start working from now. That next elections, 5 years from now, should not be with EVMs. There should be paper. Everywhere it has become paper. So it should be paper here. If there was an opposition. But there is no wretched opposition worth the salt, except some little pockets survive, and they happen to be in the south. That is why when I was leaving Delhi for this talk, the joke was that Naqvi is going south to, he's going to exile. Because, and so, this is my appeal to you, should I ever need it, I love this place, it really is. I will, so give me a little plot of land, and I will, so that my adoration with you continues. Now, a little bit about Kerala. I told you the double game that Mrs. Gandhi had started in 1982. Karnakaran was a master of that game here. Not that any of these people were less, but he was a great master. He had another fixation. He wanted somehow to Brahmanize Rajiv Gandhi. Now Rajiv Gandhi happened to be the son of a Parsi. How do you give him the thread? So he took him to Guruvayur. 4 times, all Anga Pradarshan, poor fellow did. He never understood anything. 4 times he rolled around the gods. Nothing happened to his spirit. But something else happened. He fell in love with the payasam of Guruvayur. So when he and his Italian extended family went for a holiday to Lakshadweep, they asked Karnakaran if they could have that wonderful payasam. The Chief Minister of Kerala, with special powers in Guruvayur, sent whole canisters of payasam for Rajiv Gandhi's holiday in Lakshadweep. Yes. So he was playing that game. Whenever there was always a little bit of an RSS here. RSS has four different phases. It came to the north as refugees from Punjab, Pakistan. That was a very aggressive thing. In UP and this cultural belt, it had a civilizational grievance. You know, that our ancient Puranic culture has been uprooted by these marauders who came from, from the north, and they were our invaders. This was more or less the plank. South, they had no entree. But during the famous cyclone in Andhra Pradesh, the RSS volunteers started working and they made a little base, and you had this reclamation of the Christians in that area. Lot of cases took place. Salvation Army reconverted. That happened. In Kerala, it injected itself as a political anti-left force. Mullahs and the RSS have two things that are anathema to them. One is communism. That's how Mullah was tried in Iran, to remove the communists. They did. Same the RSS. Communists. So they came here as an anti-communist force. It didn't work. It had you have had two things here in Kerala which they wanted to work on. One was communism. It was a very good communist party. You know, with people like Gopalan and EMS and others, it was a very, very well organized people. And they were credible people who had given up their own lands, who had given, that kind of thing was there. So anti-communist, but then he discovered that there are Christians here. There's a whole belt of Christians from Kottayam and Aleppi and Quilon, all those areas. And then you go Malabar, there are Muslims here. The Muslims became a problem after the 1973 quadrupling of Arab oil. The first lot that went there to Dubai, first were Muslims. They made lots of money, came back, and you had these garish Dubai houses come up. And everybody said, what are this? This is not Kerala, man. What are these people doing? Then later on, the hijab came. And so these things, they moved. But the Tweedledum Tweedledee Congress, what the Karnakaran did was, if the RSS injected itself into the electoral process, there was always a 1% difference. That was all. If it injected itself, the UDF won. If it did not inject itself, the LDF won. So therefore, it was there. And now, with the support, now they have one seat. They have finally broken their duck. They now have one seat. And now with the power that they have, look what they have done in Kashmir. Supposing I just give you an idea. They say exactly in 1957, dismiss the government. But that was the difference. Nehru and others, they were at least, they had just begun to believe in democracy. Supposing they say, look, this is not working. Let there be a sort of Kashmir-like takeover. Supposing, it's absurd, can't happen, too politicized, but supposing. So they are going to make a very, very concerted effort to create Hindu-Muslim, Christian-Hindu, all of these divisions will come up. And the global situation, you will hear, and mark my word, you will hear terrorism in South India. And in Kerala. Why? It is, the funny thing is that the requirement of the BJP and the requirement of the global deep state is the same. What happened in Sri Lanka? 300 people on Easter Sunday killed apparently by Muslims. Who? Christians. Why would Muslims kill Christians? Two minorities struggling in that country. Why? The truth, dear friends, again, you did not investigate and you did not know. All the hotels that were targeted were facing the sea, on the seafront. 7 Chinese engineers working on maritime cooperation with the Sri Lankans were killed. Does that not ring a bell? Now at the moment there is a global, shall we say, phobia that Chinese are coming. Chinese are coming. So when Chinese are coming, and you can't manage it, this whole sea lanes will be controlled by them. Their rail and road plan is going to embrace the whole world. What do we do? So we are going to create a mayhem which a small country will not be able to manage. So the deep state will appear, intelligence agencies, it's all here. It's all available in writing, only if you were interested. US, UK, Israel, Australia, India, all intelligence agencies working very hard to find out what has happened. I gave you the detail that this Chinese, this is not a subject of a talk, it's rather a scoop. So someone who wants a scoop. They've discovered other things. They found out, sniffer dogs found out where the detonators for the bomb was available. They have hushed up the whole story in Sri Lanka. So what I'm saying is that this area is going to be engulfed in all sorts of, the ingredients are there. The Chinese are monsters, the Muslims are monsters, they are brutal, and they don't like us, they want a caliphate from here to there, they want to remove all of you and have an Islamic law here. You wouldn't believe it. But if you are watching that television and your family and children's children are watching that 24 hours round the clock, 24 hours, you will begin to change. You will begin, mark my word. So the culprit in the end is this mass media, which is comprehensively controlled by those. We are passive recipients. We watch and we react. And if it is more frequently, then we begin to believe. And if it is repeated again and again and again, then we become gung-ho, we become to support them. The problem, dear friends, in this area, mark my word, Hindutva, Hindu-Muslim, Christian-Muslim, and they will Eduwa Nair, and they will try every combination of clash will happen. It will be amplified on that big machine, on your television, and when it happens, remember this useless talk that I have given you this evening. Thank you very much.